Hey, I hope you guys are doing good today. We are going to be watching Feeding a Roman Gladiator, and I think this is going to be interesting. I did see in the Gladiator Facts video that he did kind of touch on what they what their diet kind of was. So I thought this would be like a good follow-up one from that one so we could see kind of like a little insight to that. I think this is going to be really good though. I'm really excited for this. If you do get a chance, I'd appreciate if you can leave a like and subscribe. It helps me out a bunch, and I will have Max's video linked in my description below, so be sure to go and like and subscribe to him. He does such an amazing job. I absolutely just love his videos. I feel like I just learn so much from them, so be sure to give him lots of support. All right, let's see what it takes to feed a gladiator.
Of all the jobs in ancient Rome, gladiator was probably one of the worst. Low life expectancy, you lived most of it in a cell, and you had a pretty monotonous diet. Mostly a porridge, or pulse, of barley and beans.
This actually sounds really good to me, but I feel like I'm such a plain person sometimes that sometimes simple stuff like this, it looks good. Like I'm a huge fan of plain oatmeal, and I know a lot of people think that that's gross, but I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan.
So thank you to HelloFresh for sponsoring this video as we enter the Colosseum and dine as gladiators. This time on Tasting History. Recent archaeological evidence shows that a gladiator's diet was mostly vegetarian, at least on the day-to-day. And unfortunately, there are no recipes left to us for a gladiator's meal. But we can reconstruct one using the writings of Galen. Galen, who is one of the most famous physicians from the ancient world, spent quite a bit of time stitching up gladiators, and he wrote about their diet. There is also much use made of fava beans. Our gladiators eat a great deal of this food every day, making the condition of their body fleshy. Not compact, dense flesh like pork, but flesh that is somehow more flabby. Why do I feel a little attacked by that?
No, no, you're not flabby, Max. You're you're fine. Well, I guess now we know gladiators weren't sculpted like Greek gods. They got a little cushion.
Anyway, having that extra layer of flab might have actually been a good thing when your job entailed people stabbing at you.
That's probably true.
Because, you could bleed a lot, give the people a spectacle, but you're not endangering your vital organs. Galen goes on to say that these beans made the gladiators unusually flatulent, and that it was usually served as a porridge with barley, what the poet Juvenal called the hotchpot of the gladiator. And Pliny the Elder backs this up by saying, barley is among the oldest human foods, and the name given to gladiators who used to be called hordeari, barley men. So between these writings and actual recipes for fancier porridges or pulse by Apicius and Cato the Elder, we can kind of reconstruct what this gladiatorial pulse might have been like. So for this recipe, what you'll need is 1 cup or 150 grams of dried fava beans, 1 cup or 170 grams of barley.
I really like barley. Like I make beef and barley soup like pretty much every year, like a couple times a year, like once it starts getting cold, and I don't know, I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan.
Best if you can find hulled barley for this, but if you can only find pearl barley, is more common, just cook it for half as long. It's going to be a little bit mushier, but pretty much the same. 1 quart or 1 liter of water, 1 onion chopped, 3 cloves of garlic pressed. For as Varro says, ubi allium, ibi Roma. Where there is the smell of garlic, there is Rome. 3 tablespoons of olive oil, 2 tablespoons of red wine vinegar, and 1 teaspoon of salt. Now this is going to...
This sounds pretty good. This sounds really nice, actually. I kind of want to make this too. Man, my list of things that I want to cook once it starts cooling off more, it's like astronomical at this point. Like, I feel like Max is going to make me fat. Bro's going to make me fat.
2 tablespoons of red wine vinegar and 1 teaspoon of salt. Now this is going to make a decent amount of pulse, which is required, for Seneca writes that for gladiators to withstand the blows and kicks of several opponents at once, and to such a degree that a man can last out the day and resist the scorching sun in the midst of the burning dust, drenched all the while in his own blood, must have copious food, copious drink,
Yeah.
copious quantities of oil.
Yep.
But I'm not doing any of that stuff, so I'm probably not going to be finishing this entire thing of pulse, also because I just made a meal from today's sponsor, HelloFresh. So go to HelloFresh.com and use my code TASTINGHISTORY14 to get 14 free meals plus free shipping. 14 free meals, people, just using my code TASTINGHISTORY14 at HelloFresh.com. But until you order, it's gladiatorial pulse for you. So first,
I don't think it looks bad though. It doesn't look bad.
soak the barley and the beans in cool water overnight. Once they're soaked, remove the peel from the fava beans, or you can just buy them pre-peeled. It's a lot easier. Now the order of these next things are kind of up to you, but if you want to do it all in one pot, add the olive oil and the onion to the pot, coating the onion in the oil, then set over medium heat and cook for 5 minutes or until the onions are translucent. Then carefully add the water to the pot and bring to a boil. Note that if you've used too much oil and you pour water onto it, it can kind of spatter, and so be careful. If you want to completely eliminate that step, you can make the onions outside of the pot and then add them in later on. Once the water is boiling, add in the barley and cook for about 30 minutes. Then add the fava beans, the salt, the wine vinegar, and the garlic, and stir. Then cook this down into a thick porridge for about 30 minutes or so. Now, I don't know when a meal like this became the standard cuisine for gladiators, but Livy tells us that the first gladiatorial games were organized in 264 BC during the First Punic War by two brothers, Marcus and Decimus Brutus. They did this to honor their father at his funeral, and gladiatorial games often accompanied funerals. In 216 BC, the sons of consul Aemilius Lepidus honored his death.
Is this like what it was, kind of like what it looked like? Like, is this the deceased up here and then everybody fights because they had like, there was like a type of human sacrifice? That is crazy. That is wild.
With 22 fights held over 3 days.
Oh my gosh.
Basically, if Dad had to die, he wasn't going alone.
Yeah.
But what exactly was life like for one of these gladiators? Well, as our porridge bakes and you hit that like button, provided you're entertained. Are you not entertained? Let's take a look at the life.
Oh, I was hoping he was going to put this in here. How can you not? How can you not?
Like button, provided you're entertained. Are you not entertained? Let's take a look at the life of an ancient Roman gladiator. So you're a gladiator. Congratulations and my condolences, because your life expectancy is frighteningly low, about the age of 27. But that rather short life is going to be very exciting as long as you like fighting, because that is what you're going to be doing most of the time, mostly for practice. See, as a gladiator, you'd belong to a ludus, or gladiatorial school. Some of the gladiators might be captives of war or criminals, and many choose to be there either as a way to pay off debt or because they just like killing things. But it does matter how you got there, because according to...
Which do you think is scarier? The criminals that are trying to fight for their freedom, or the guy that likes to fight? Because I feel like both kind of have pros and cons to it. But like, which do you think would be more dangerous? Like, let's just say that I mean, I guess technically if you had a soldier that just liked fighting and was just about that life, I would say it probably would be a little bit scarier than maybe the criminal who's fighting for their freedom. But if you were a criminal and, you know, you basically have nothing to lose at that point, that is also scary. Somebody who has nothing to lose is also very scary. I don't know. I actually don't know who I'd put my money on.
To the poet Juvenal, net throwers aren't required to mess with convicted felons. Even the lowest scum of the arena observe this rule. Even in prison, they are separate. And essentially it is a prison of sorts, because you spend all of your time in a cell unless you are eating or fighting. Gladiators were slaves to the lanista, or the owner of the school, and to him you must vow to endure to be burned, to be bound, to be beaten, and to be killed by the sword.
That is quite an oath that you are taking, or, you know, contract you're signing to.
To endure to be burned, to be bound, to be beaten, and to be killed by the sword. And right off the bat, I'm out. But if you do choose to stay, and you're good, then it's not all bad. Because Galen talks about unctores, or slaves that are in charge of basically making sure that the gladiators are nice and comfortable and receive daily massages before heading back to their cell. So between the massages, the exciting cuisine, and the hours of training, your lanista has made quite an investment in you, and...
I mean, you know, that's I guess that's kind of the trade-off. And if you are a criminal, maybe this is better than being in jail and or maybe having I mean, I guess you'd have a quicker demise too in some ways if you were one of the criminals. So, I mean, it's not great, but it could be a whole lot worse.
Exciting cuisine and the hours of training, your lanista has made quite an investment in you, and he's going to get a return on that investment.
That
And he's
is
going to do
true.
that by renting you out. First option, the army. In 69 AD, the year of 4 emperors, which we talked about in the episode on Vitellian peas, the Emperor Otho's defenses included an irregular force of 2,000 gladiators, a shameful assistance of which during the civil wars even strict generals availed themselves.
That's a lot. They had got 2,000 gladiators. That's a lot. That is a lot. That is quite the enlistment.
So it wasn't really looked well upon to have gladiators in your army, but it did happen quite a lot, though it tended not to go well for the gladiators. So instead of fighting an actual battle, you might be better off fighting an entertaining battle at a dinner party.
Oh, yeah, that seems like that might be a little bit better. I would say that seems like a little less dangerous.
You might
'Cause, like, I could see kind of, like, if you had to go to war as a gladiator, like, I could see them just kinda being fodder,
be better
like
off
a meat
fighting
shield.
an entertaining battle at a dinner party. The Romans would invite their friends to dinner, and when they were all sated with dining and drink, they called in the gladiators. No sooner did one have his throat cut than the masters applauded with delight.
Oh.
Bravo!
Oh,
Charming,
oh,
just
man.
charming. Though a description from the consul Silius Italicus paints a rather more gruesome picture. Often the combatants fell dead above the very cups of the partygoers, and the tables were stained with streams of blood.
I ah, I don't know if I'd find that super entertaining, but, like, I'm not judging. I'm not judging, and entertainment was just different.
That's why I never sit in the splash zone. Now, the
Yeah.
other activity that you might be employed in as a gladiator, and probably the most famous, is to participate in the games, fighting in an arena like the Colosseum, which, by the way, I just finished putting together the Lego Colosseum.
It looks great.
And as a huge Lego fan, it was pretty cool to get to put this together. It's the biggest that they've ever done, and it really made me want to go back to Rome, so someday. Now, most gladiators only participated in these fights 3 or 4 times a year, so it wasn't a daily occurrence. But since you had a likelihood of dying in about 1 out of every 5 games, the odds not great. But the night before the big fight, you got a nice fancy meal. A cena libera was a sort of feast where the combatants were given all sorts of food and drink, often in a public place, as a way to gin up excitement for the next day. Though several writers say that the gladiators tended to actually focus on spending time with their family and setting their affairs in order rather than gorging themselves. But
Oh, I mean, that makes sense. That actually makes a lot of sense, though. It's like if you had a family and you or possibly that was like your last day to be on this earth. Yeah. Yeah, that fair enough. Fair enough.
focus on spending time with their family and setting their affairs in order rather than gorging themselves. But it's up to you. What's not up to you is whether or not you fight, because
Right.
you're gonna fight.
Yeah.
It was compulsory. Though, unless you're a condemned criminal and opening the games by having to fight a tiger or another wild beast, the editor or the producer of the games would typically pair you up with someone that you at least had a decent chance against. So that's good news. There were many
yeah.
types of gladiator who were trained to fight with different weapons and equipment. And there was a way of pairing them up so that in theory there was no one type that overpowered another, unlike Batman versus Superman, because it's Superman versus Batman. How that movie lasted 3 hours, I don't know. I know it's been a long time, but I'm still upset about that. Also, like Batman,
Fair enough. Fair enough. Also, like I don't like you probably want your fight to be exciting. So if you just had some guy like stomping everybody in the ground, if your fights are uneven, then it would probably not be that fun to watch. Like, you kind of want that excitement in there, like you want like a good fight to go on. So if you have it too unbalanced, then there's going to be like a one and done type of situation. People are going to hate that.
I don't know. I know it's been a long time, but I'm still upset about that. Also, like Batman versus Superman, your fight would be set to a musical score. There would
Oh,
often be music played during the fight, including horns blasting out each time a blow was hit. Now, one way to win, of course, was to kill your opponent, but that happened less than you might think. Namely because if you died, then the editor or the producer would have to pay your lanista quite a bit more, like 50 times more than what he
right.
paid to rent you. Kind of like if you rent a car and destroy it and didn't get insurance. Same thing. So instead of dying,
Well, yeah, because like as we learned in the Gladiator facts video, that I mean these gladiators are an investment. So, if even if they are getting rented out, it is kind of like what Max is saying. It's like kind of running a car. So if they end up dying in these fights, then like you're gonna have to cover that cost because these gladiators are a. I mean, it sounds like they are like a huge investment.
you rent a car and destroy it and didn't get insurance. Same thing. So instead of dying, if you were bested, you could raise your fingers up in surrender, or the gladiator may lower his weapon and test the pity of the people. And
Hmm.
pity was usually given. Not always, but usually. An arbiter, who was usually the editor, or if the emperor was there, then it was him, would be the one who decided if you lived or died, though they would often take into account the voice of the people. When the thumbs of the rabble are turned up, let any man be killed to court the mob. So it wasn't actually a thumbs down that sealed your fate, but a thumb in general, just kind of waving around, we don't
Ooh.
exactly know. It was called the pollice verso, or turned thumb, and if they wanted you to live, then they just hid their thumb. So you want to see this out there. But
Ah, I didn't know that. Okay, okay. Because yeah, like in the movies, they always do the thumbs up, thumbs down, or like they have like they do it like a neutral, like to the side, and then they turn it like whichever way. But oh, okay, that's actually pretty cool.
they just hid
Also, that seems like very confusing because as we've seen, like at least in the Colosseum, uh, that seems like a very easy way to misjudge if a thumb is out or not, though.
their thumb. So you want to see this out there. But if indeed it was your time to go, you had to do so honorably. The gladiator,
Right.
no matter how faint-hearted he has been throughout the fight, offers his throat to his opponent and
Mm.
directs the wavering blade to the vital spot. The vital spot being the jugular. Though while this noble death was the ideal, it didn't always happen that way. There was a story
Uh-oh.
of 5 retiari, or gladiators with nets, who yielded to 5 secutores, who fought with short swords and shields. And unfortunately for the retiari, the audience flipped them the thumb. But when their death was ordered, one of them caught up his trident and slew all the victors. Caligula bewailed this in a public proclamation as a most cruel murder.
Damn, that's a little savage, but I kind of get it though. Like you're gonna have some dirty ones in there, and I could totally see this happening.
And when Caligula calls you cruel, yeesh. But if you
True, also true. Like if Caligula's calling you out for some bad behavior, you done something like real nasty because he was nasty, nasty.
did live, you got to basically be a celebrity. Roman children had figurines made of their favorite gladiators, and gladiator sweat could be sold as an aphrodisiac. So it's no wonder that they were very popular with the ladies. Graffiti in Pompeii calls out, "The
True.
girl's idol, Celidus the Thracian gladiator. Fought 3, won 3. And
3 and 3. I'm just saying, I think it'd be cool, super cool, to have a gladiator bodyguard. I'm still in full support of that. I'm just saying.
Crescens, the netter of young girls by night. Noble women would often pay to have the winner of a fight spend the evening with them at their villa, and the
Oh,
poet
there you
Juvenal
go.
writes of Hippia, a senator's wife who runs off with a gladiator to
Oh.
Egypt. Though he questions why she's willing to throw away her reputation and forsake her children, her husband, and her home. For the gladiator was maimed in his limbs and verging now to age. Add that his face was battered and decayed, the helmet on his brow huge
Damn.
sores had made. A wart deformed his nose of monstrous size, and foul discharge trickled from bloodshot eyes. But then he was a gladiator. That alone made every charm and every grace his own.
So you could, okay, like, so you could be a little bit unfortunate looking and kind of beat up, but because you have the title of the gladiator, the ladies are gonna love you. Ladies are gonna love you. I mean, this is such a like I feel like this is such a hit against this guy. But I mean, maybe he really was this unfortunate looking. We don't know. Or maybe he was just a little like that's just what he looked like after he fought. So of course he's not gonna look probably his best, but it just seems like it's so mean.
A lid to every pot, I suppose. Though most of the ancient writers didn't seem to hold gladiators in very high regard no matter how much they won. Tacitus bemoaned the fact that his students were always talking about them during his lectures, and Calpurnius Flaccus said, "There is no meaner condition among the people than that of the gladiator." And Seneca writes in what sounds a bit like sour grapes, "How many men, I say to myself, train their bodies, and how few train their minds? What crowds flock to the games, spurious as they are and arranged merely for pastime? And what solitude reigns where the good arts are taught? How feather-brained are the athletes whose muscles and shoulders we admire."
I mean, I don't think they're wrong, but at the same time, I kind of feel like these gladiator games was a great way for the people to kind of like let off some steam. I mean, you can spend your whole life reading and maybe going to like, and maybe some people can't afford to go to the finer like theater arts and stuff like that too. Where I mean, obviously, as we learn that like it's free, but it's not free to go to these things, and but like at the same time, it's probably maybe more affordable than going to the theater. And I don't know how many people enjoyed reading all of the time, and so I can see kind of both sides to this of like, it is brutal, and I would imagine there's probably plenty of people that didn't have the stomach to watch this, but at the same time, I feel like it's kind of like that kind of entertainment where people can go and kind of just let off some steam and just enjoy the day. Because I mean, obviously, as we learned, this was like a whole spectacle type thing, and to be able to get into one of these and to be able to go to one of these was probably like kind of like a big deal. It's like getting into a huge concert or something, to nowadays. But this is like, I mean, it was basically just like a whole day long show. So I kind of don't blame anybody for wanting to go, and it's such a big deal.
How feather-brained are the athletes whose muscles and shoulders we admire. Just like how the football team at my high school got all the funding even though it was our choir that were the state champs. The jocks get everything. Nothing has changed
True.
in 2,000 years, and maybe I'm the one with sour grapes.
No, Max, no. Fair enough. Fair enough. Plus, I feel like women probably haven't changed a whole lot. Women like looking at muscles. If and as much as they probably still like going to the theater, if you're going to see some guy with his pecs out and big old arms, like the ladies are going to love it. They're going to love it. And then the men are going to love the brutal fighting. So it's kind of like you have appealed to both sides.
Now, if you do live through enough bouts in the arena, you may be lucky enough to be presented with a rudis, or wooden sword. It was the same type of wooden sword that you would have used to train back at your ludus, but if it was presented to you on the sand in the arena, that meant you were free. It was like giving a sock to Dobby.
Dobby is free.
Though many who received this freedom ended up going back to the ludus either to keep fighting or more often to train others, because what else are you going to do?
That's
now, there
true.
were multiple times in Rome's history where they tried to put an end to the games, but it seems that the final straw came on January 1st, 404 AD, when a Christian monk named Telemachus had had enough. After gazing upon the combat from the amphitheater, he descended into the arena and tried to separate the gladiators. The sanguinary spectators, possessed by the demon who delights in the effusion of blood, were irritated at the interruption of their cruel sports and stoned him who had occasioned the secession.
I mean, I get he was probably, in with the right intentions, but bro, you can't go in there and think you're gonna break this up. Like I don't this is not good. I get, I mean, there are other ways to maybe try to end your games, but at the same time, like bro going in there trying to break up a fight, and like adrenaline's high, the testosterone is flowing in there. I can't imagine this was great. That this was a good idea.
The Emperor Honorius was so upset by this that he named Telemachus a martyr and put one final official end to the games, though they probably actually kept going on, but not officially.
Right, yeah.
So that's the life of your average gladiator. But this Friday on Drinking History, I'm going to be talking about some of your less average gladiators, including emperors and women, and I'll be making a drink that the gladiators were famous for. But for now, it's back to our gladiator pulse. So once the pulse has cooked down, dish it up and serve. And here we are, barley and bean pulse for a Roman gladiator. It's not the prettiest dish I've ever made, that's for sure. Kind of looks like oatmeal, very, very mild color, but it smells good, so.
I'm telling you, I don't know. I'm a very plain person a lot of the time, so this looks good to me. I would eat this. I want to eat some right now. Like this looks good.
So let's give it a shot. Very garlicky. Not too garlicky, but garlicky. It's not half bad.
Yeah.
There's that hint of sweet from the onion, but the garlic is definitely the most dominant flavor. You know, there's not a lot of flavor to barley or the beans.
Right.
So they're just like an avenue for whatever else you put in here. I like the garlic because I like garlic. I might even put more garlic in, but anything that you put in here, that's kind of what the flavor is going to be. I think I did a very good job. I'm not going to lie.
I think it looks
good. Be careful not to oversalt this. This could become very salty very quickly. The thing is, this is a side dish. This is not an entire meal. I mean, it was an entire meal. This is all that they ate, but I don't know if I could eat like huge bowls of it for every meal. I think that would get very, very monotonous. But, you know, that's how it was.
I wonder if you could just like add some beef on top of it or something. You know, like you could probably maybe add some more stuff to it to kind of make it more of a meal friendly.
Life of a Roman gladiator. So thank you to HelloFresh for sponsoring this video. Make sure to follow me on Instagram, Tasting History with Max Miller, and check out our Reddit and our Discord. I'll put the links in the description, and I will see you next time on Tasting History.
Great job. I really enjoyed this one. This one was really, really good. It's kind of crazy, just the whole gladiator phase era. You know, like I feel like there's so much crazy stuff that goes on, and there's so much to learn. And I don't know. Lately, you know, like I feel like my interest has been into a lot of gladiator history, war history, Western history. I don't know. Like I feel like I'm in like a bigger history phase than I have been, I guess. So this was great though. I mean, I always love learning about food. I love seeing what he cooks. You know, I love all that, and it's tying in a lot of things that I've been really into lately. So this was great. I actually really want to make this one too. So I'm gonna have to add this one to my long list of things that I want to cook when it's nice and cold out. But this was great. I absolutely love this one. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I really appreciate you guys being here. Be sure to go and like and subscribe to Tasting History with Max Miller. He does just such an amazing job. So be sure to give him lots of support. And I mean, just, and let me know if how much stuff you cook from him, if you got his cookbook, all that good stuff, because I mean, he's just fantastic. But that's going to do it for me. I hope you guys had a great day, and I will see you in the next one.